Okay, my very good friends, this is Roger, Mudfossil University, and I'm just going to lead into my video about finding and extracting gold with borax in very small scale, like in your backyard. Now, David Hudson found a ton of gold, 2,300 ounces of platinum group metals in 1 ton of stuff that he found. And I think the key to extracting it is in this borax. So I'm just going to run this for 1 second, but you should go up here and watch. There's another video that I will reference in the upcoming portion.
And there it is, pure gold with...
All right, with no cyanide in your backyard. Okay, I'm one of my friends. Everybody looking for gold? Well, let's talk about gold. It's Roger, Mudfossil University, and we're looking into a vein, which is actually an artery of gold. Now let's listen and watch this. It's what they call a ram's horn. The blood comes down and the gold starts to pile up, pile up, pile up. All of a sudden it clogs it off. You got little pieces coming here and here and here and there, but the main thing is this horn. All right, there's one right there. Now, and you can actually see there's little spots of blood here and there. They're little red. You can see, and you know, if you look at it close, it's there. It's going to be embedded in the gold when they don't hit it with all these acids and so forth. All right, there's another little. All right, I don't see any reason to go any further than this. My point is there's a way of the gold coming down the feet of these giant creatures and collecting in these tubes of gold, and I mean giant creatures. So, what would happen if they didn't collect down in those tubes? What if that ran out somewhere and collected? Could we find that gold? And the answer is yes, we can. Now this is called David Hudson Ormus Conference in Nota 2011, and it is fabulous, filled and packed with details of his scientific research, 2 hours and 11 minutes. Now, he discovered orbitally rearranged monoatomic elements just laying on the ground, actually on the side of a hill. Now, I'm going to have him explain, because he was a cotton farmer. Let him talk. Here goes. And everybody loves this ormus. It is extremely healthy because it contains all of the elements that leach from all of the things that were originally here.
Our family was involved in agriculture for years, and I was a cotton farmer. I had built my business up in the 1960s and 70s. We were actually farming, extensive land holdings in Yuma Valley and in the Phoenix area. The total operation that the family farmed was about 7,000 acres, and it was primarily cotton. But I got involved in a farm down in what was called Agua Caliente, Arizona, which is actually in the Arizona desert out between Gila Bend and Yuma, right out in the middle of the desert. And it actually got its name from the Agua Caliente hot springs right there at the mountain next to my farm. They have a hot springs, an old resort.
Remember that, a hot springs, an old resort right next to his farm.
Where in the 1920s and 30s, the railroad trains would have to stop to get steam water for the steam engines. And they actually had a resort there where the tourists would get off and go bathe themselves in the hot springs and rejuvenate their bodies, supposedly. Well, I had a 1,200 acre farm that I bought down there that had really serious problems with what we call black alkali. There were several fields down towards the Gila River that were really, really serious black alkali. And this looks like chocolate.
All right. Once again, black alkali. It looks like chocolate. I'm going to explain to you exactly what it is. And so here he goes.
In the soil. And for you people back here on the eastern part of the United States, you have no idea what I'm talking about because you have the opposite problems. But it's a chocolatey, crunchy material that's actually salt that builds up on the tops of our soils. And when you plant...
Salt that builds up on top of the soils. I'll hit the watermark.
And like, for example, cotton. The cotton will actually germinate and get up about 5-6 inches tall and just will be stunted. It won't grow any further. And you put water on the soil, and the water just beads up and stands on the soil as if there was actually oil in the soil.
Oil in the soil.
It will not go into the soil itself well and be retained in the soil.
All right, there's no reason to go any further with his description of what he is speaking of that he discovered here. Now, I'm just going to go to cut to where he talks a little bit more about it. All right, now I'm going to go into where the gold mining comes up, because what he did was he got a bunch of sulfuric acid and he put it in amongst these things that he was seeing in the soil, and then when they added water, it started bubbling, all kind of reactivity, and then he sort of walked away from it from there, and now we're into the point where he decides the economy is so bad, everybody, this is back Jimmy Carter's era, where the economy is so bad, he's going to look into gold mining. So here goes.
Figured I had Caterpillar bulldozers, I had earth movers, I had road graders, I had, front end loaders, all on the farm anyway. And so I had the equipment, I could go up and start moving ore. And I found out there's a process called heap leaching, where you actually take black plastic and lay out on a pad, and you put all this ore on top the black plastic pad, and you put rainbird sprinklers up there just like you use on your lawn, and you run a cyanide water solution over the ore, and it dissolves out the gold and it runs out on the plastic.
Now this cyanide leaching he's talking about, it drags all of the gold out, and there's a new way to, well, there's not a new way, there's a different way to do it for small scale, is borax. And I'm going to show you this whole thing, because you can do this at home. You can find gold really in your backyard.
Pad, and you put all this ore on top the black plastic pad.
Cyanide's a disaster.
Rainbird sprinklers up there just like you use on your lawn, and you run a cyanide water solution over the ore, and it dissolves out the gold and it runs out on the plastic pad into a settling pond, and then you pump it back up and over and pump it back up and over, and it keeps it running the cycle for days and days and days. And what happens is the cyanide will dissolve the gold, bring the gold out in solution. You run that solution through activated charcoal and then back out and over the heap leach again. And so you're taking the gold out onto the carbon in this cycle.
All right, the carbon absorbs the gold particulates. All right.
Anyway, it's not important that you learn how to heap leach cyanide gold. It's just that that's what I was doing. And the concept of leaching a metal out of a dirt or a rock substance, and in Arizona our dirt is actually broken down
alchemy.
rock. We don't really have topsoil like they have.
All right, now here's getting into the point. He got this stuff that he turned into gold off the side of a mountain. He'll talk about it somewhere.
Around here in these soils. And so it was just seeming the same thing to me. It was really natural that I get involved in this. I just encountered some problems though when I started trying to recover the gold out of the activated carbon. When we tried to strip the gold out and fire the material and melt it into a metal, we had stuff that wasn't gold recovering with our gold.
All right, well, that's obviously the platinum group metals. Now, the thing that borax does is similar, but it does not seem to. Well, anyway, I think he was in an area where it wasn't just gold that was being collected there. It was all of the platinum group metals, and that's because he was in blood. So let's keep going.
Now, the gold was there, but it was this other stuff that just refused to go away. It just followed with the gold all through the system. And I just became frustrated in the recoveries because it was actually low. When this material caused a problem in the fire assay, it caused much of the gold to be lost. And I said, what in the heck is this? And I'd heard about tellurium and things like this, that people had problem in gold mining. And I said, I got to find out what this problem material is.
All right, before I go any further, I'm going to show you what the problem material is in a opalized heart that shows you the transition metals that accumulate in blood. And that's what he was processing, was blood. So hold on a second. Okay, what Dave Hudson was recovering was the transition metals, all these colors. And gold is yellow. I mean, all these different colors are in here. Transition metals. Then you have the rare earth metals, which I believe he was also picking up on because of the process that he was using. So they're all in the blood. Let me put it this way. All these things are in your blood. They're all in your blood. They have a job to do in your blood. They have a certain chemical affinity to pick up and move different things through what's called carbonic acids and carbonic gases. All right, so and that is what he's talking about, trying to adhere it to the carbon. So it's a very simple, well, it's not a simple process, but it's a process. Now, let me show you the heart that shows you all these colors. Now, that's an opalized heart. And these are the chambers of the heart that have filled with, they were filled with blood. These colors are the colors I just showed you, the transition colors, transition elements. And you have a plethora of different colors here, and they attach to each other and so forth, but primarily when they're in the blood, in the body, in the salt solutions, they attach and detach to different molecules and do the chemistry to transfer and pick up molecules in your bodies and create products and do all that business. And you can see they are specific to tissues. It's very, very specific, the colors. So if you don't have the right transition metals in your body, you may have weak heartstrings, or your ventricle walls or be bad, whatever it is. Right away, I'm going to tell you right now, a lot of people have trouble with all kinds of membranes in their body, and the membranes are primarily carbon bags. They're fatty lipids. Look it up. There's all kinds of... Anyway, this is the chemistry. So now that we know we have these molecules and these colors floating through our body, and they are transition metals that include all the things Dave Hudson is looking for. How did he get them? How did he get them off the side of a mountain? All right, once again, it's a pretty long video, so you should come up and watch it, but I'm going to cut right in here at 4:42. And he's talking about this guy Ziggy, who was a physicist that had developed a machine that could see in 20-foot wide spectrum, which is incredible, to identify all of the different elements. And he's the only one in the world could do it. And he had to modify his machine to do what David Hudson was asking him to do, because David Hudson was going by the Russian criteria. We would not do that. They refused to do it. And even this guy refused to do it unless he paid for everything. And so I'm going to let him start talking. Here goes.
Modifying my machine to do the long burn times. You will have to pay for me to do this work. And then when I do it, you will have to pay for my time and everything, and then I will tell you what I get. And I says, fine, I'll pay for it. So it cost me like $3,500 for the very first run of material.
All right, before I continue on, if I should have started earlier, but I'm not going to. What he did, he said, as they heated it up and heated it up and heated it up and heated it up, one thing would just start to vaporize and nothing would happen for a little while after. So they thought everything was gone, but no. He had to do this long burn time, because eventually he would hit another threshold, and then another element would appear in this spectrum. So obviously it was being emitted at that temperature. So they had to burn and burn and burn. Now, not necessarily go up with the temperature, but really what they were doing is flooding it with electrons. That's my electron flood theory, and it's absolutely flawlessly fits this. Now, I'm going to let him go, but what my point being is that nobody would do this for him, because they said, no, it burns off, all the stuff is gone. Watch. They burnt it off, it's all gone, and they say, see, there's nothing coming, nothing coming, nothing coming. Well, he had to wait like a minute before anything additionally would come up. And then it was another 30 seconds for another one, and then another. That's called a long burn time. And it's exactly what I have for my electron flood theory, because, anyway, that's another issue. Here goes.
But the sample I brought to him, it read these elements. And he was totally flabbergasted.
Where do you hear the quantities?
And if you go to the forward, yeah, here it is. Anyway, this right here, the GW sample, June 21st, 1982. If you see, platinum is 0.05 to 0.3%. Not ounces per ton, percent. Iridium is major. Now, by major, he goes only up to, I think, 3%. No, here's one, he goes to 5%. Well, by major, he's saying it's over 5%.
All right, now, listen to this. I just did a video about this, that 5% iridium in this stuff that he's got, which is blood, is what created the KT layer. because the KT layer is made out of kaolin clay, which is skin, and it's got a ton of iridium in it, which he says is major in the product that he delivered to Ziggy, which is from blood.
It's beyond what I'm calibrated to read. To read that accurately, I have to actually dilute the sample down
Iridium.
and make it emit in a lower amount because it's beyond my capability to read the amount.
Too much.
The osmium is 0.3 to 1.5%. Rhodium is major. Ruthenium is major. Anyway, and of course this is all the other, cadmium, cesium. He didn't, and iron, of course, is a high amount. Anyway,
Everything that's in
he
blood.
just says, Dave, these elements cannot exist in the quantities that I'm reading them. Everybody knows that. Now, for perspective, I need to tell you that the best known mine in the world is in South Africa. And these people go a half mile underground and work underground at a half mile to get ore that has 1/3 of 1 ounce of all the platinum metals in it.
All right, he's getting 7,000 times more than that, extracting from this brown chocolatey powder.
1/3 of 1 ounce per ton. And this sample right here was actually an acid dissolution of a rock on the side of a mountain.
All right, there it is. An acid dissolution of a rock on the side of a mountain. Acid cuts into salts. Salts are the things in your body that transfer all these things around.
Now, he had no idea how I produced this. He just knew I came to him with a sample. But he was reading numbers, and the amazing thing about this, people, is if you go to spectroscopy, he'll say, well, maybe it was interference. Maybe it really wasn't these elements. When you do the long burn time, everything reads in the first 15 to 20 seconds.
Here's the long burn.
And then it goes quiet. Nothing is reading.
All right, that's why the Americans refused to go any further. They said, that's it, it's done. Case closed, we're not going to go any further.
For 30 seconds, 40 seconds, 50 seconds, 60 seconds, and then when it starts to read palladium, nothing else is reading.
That's because you have to fill the orbitals of the electrons in these different size atoms, these different size elements. They're huge and they need more heat. They're absorbing more and more and more and more and more, and all of a sudden it says, all right, we're at the full absorption. I'm just getting out of here because I'm just, and it pops up. And then you see it in the gas form. Then you can detect it.
And when palladium stops reading, then here comes the, I don't know what's
More
the next
and more
rhodium.
and more heat.
Anyway, they read in the sequence of their vaporization temperatures. And so you have to boil one completely off before the next one starts coming. And so when the next one is coming off, nothing.
Well, obviously, because the earlier ones keep sucking off all the electrons because they are more absorptive to them, and then you have the other ones floating to the surface. Now they start to absorb, and then they are gone, then the next ones go, and then the next ones go.
Nothing else is coming off. There's no way to say there's any masking. There's no way to say there's interference. No way to say there's impurities causing the reading, because nothing else is reading but these elements. So he accused me, well, he didn't accuse me, he asked me not to get in this lab. He said, get out, get out, get out. Go away. I didn't know what I'd done. I paid for everything. What's the big deal? Anyway, he wanted to check all this, be sure it was right. So it was about 4 weeks later before I heard from him again. And finally his wife calls me up. And she says, yeah, Mr. Hudson, Ziggy wanted me to call you and tell you that he needs to meet with you. So I come back over, he says, well, I checked this and these elements really are here. And he says, this is unbelievable. And I says, yes, I know. Well, I took in many other samples too, the exact same material, prepared various different ways, and everyone read no platinum metals.
All right, now here's where I want to make a statement. Now, I don't know if you took the exact same spot, because this is the key. and I will show you why. I can show you where these spots are. Now, if he didn't take it from the exact same spot, all he has to do is walk 20 feet to the side, and he's going to, if he's taking it off the side of a mountain, if it's coming off the side of a mountain, it's coming out of an artery that is draining. And I'll show you one. Well, let's show you that one right now so there's no confusion. Now, I remember David Hudson said it was on near hot springs. It would boil off all of the volatile organic chemistry, and then that brown slurry would be blown out or boiled out and collected and run down, and I believe this right here is loaded with transition metals. It's blood. Now, two different things can happen here. In the hot springs area, it would boil out all of the things other than the minerals, just like you do in a pot of water. When you boil it out and everything goes away and all you got left over is the dust on the bottom. That's what you'd end up with in here. Now, if this wasn't in a hot springs area, it would have all of the stuff that is in the blood, which is a lot of other stuff than these heavy metals. All right, but just like he said, it boils off at the temperature, or it vaporizes at a certain, it's called sublimation. And as you hit certain temperatures, and carbon sublimates is the last one on the planet Earth to go away. It's like 8,000 degrees or something. Now, this obviously was flesh, and that is obviously an artery, and that obviously is the blood to drain out of there if you understand mud fossils. And you can open up your mind to the fact that this is true. Now, if money is your objective and gold is your objective and shiny things, well, you could do that too if you want. But you got to learn about it, and just don't go bashing up the earth to try to find stuff. That's what they do now. I mean, absolute disaster what they're doing to the earth. And I've done about 10 videos on this, and I guarantee you follow those videos, you're going to find a lot of gold. Alright, it's going to run a little long, so we're going to leave it at this one today. I'm going to explain flux and borax and its role in this whole process of mining these golds out of things you could find in your backyard. So, what about borax? Borax, I'm saying, is a salt that runs out of the bodies of creatures in these hot springs areas where it's boiled off from certain places. We have to determine exactly what emits the borax, or borates, or whatever you want to call them, because they are coming from either, like, let's say, bone or tendon or muscle or nerve fibers, or something has that specific chemistry in abundance. That's why you find it in certain concentrations in certain areas. So first of all, we have to understand where is it coming from. But we could find it, and then we could find the source of it primarily. You just travel back to the source. So, and I mean, there's been mined all over the world, and they know where it comes from. I'm sure we could figure out the anatomy of the creature body part that emitted it. So, what is it? Borax is also used mixed with water, so it's this powder. You mix it with water, it's a flux. You know what a flux is? You use flux for chemistry in welding and so forth. It makes everything mix together because it lets the molecules all interact with each other. So it's used as a flux when soldering jewelry, metals such as gold or silver. Soldering is the same thing as boiling them almost, except you have them, boiling them is in water. But you can almost work out the same interactions. And it allows the molten solder to wet the metal and flow evenly into the joints. Borax is also good flux for pre-tinning, which means getting it set up to start to absorb these metals, tungsten and zinc. So tungsten can combine with zinc when you have this tinned ahead of time, slurped with this borax, making the tungsten soft and solderable. Borax is often used as a flux for forge welding. It is the combiner of these metals. So in the next one, we're going to talk about that and how you would use it in small-scale mining, very small-scale mining.